Well, after the death of Solomon, his son Rehoboam is the next in line to rise to the throne. So when his father passes away, Rehoboam heads to the town of Shechem. Shechem was to be the place where the coronation ceremony was going to take place. Until the coronation, Rehoboam was not officially the king. Yes, he was next in line of succession. Yes, theoretically he was king. Excuse me. But until he had been anointed and had been named king officially, he did not have that position. But this ceremony is going to start very differently from most of the other coronation ceremonies. Because what we're going to find is that Israel calls for Jeroboam. Now remember, Solomon was told that Jeroboam was going to be the one to receive part of the kingdom. Well, Jeroboam had fled to Egypt when he found out this news. He was afraid for his life. I would be too. He had fled to Egypt. Well, as soon as Solomon dies, some of the people call for Jeroboam to come back. Well, Rehoboam, in the process, he is asked by the people if he would lighten some of the pressures that his father Solomon had placed upon that kingdom in the later years of his reign. Well, Rehoboam, he asks if the kingdom would allow him to have 3 days to think about the matter, to talk to people, to determine the course that he wants to take. Well, the first group that he talks to are the ones that he really should have listened to. He went to his father's advisors, the older, wiser men in the kingdom. And these individuals, they wisely advised Rehoboam, if you want to keep the trust of the people, you need to become a servant of the people. Don't make things more difficult on them. If they're telling you that things are hard and they need you to alleviate some of this pressure, listen to what the people say. Well, then he went to a second group. The second group were what we would say were Rehoboam's contemporaries. They were his friends, the people he had grown up around, the young men of the nation. Well, the text seems to imply that they basically tell Rehoboam, don't give him an inch. You've got to exert your dominance right off. Don't give in. In fact, show them that you're not going to give in by making it even harder. Well, the third day, Jeroboam has shown up in Shechem. He comes along with the people of Israel. They come before Rehoboam and they want to know an answer. Well, they didn't like what he had to say. The answer was not what they anticipated, because Rehoboam foolishly went along with the advice of his friends. Well, 1 Kings 12, 13 and 14 says, Then the king answered the people roughly and rejected the advice which the elders had given him, and he spoke to them according to the advice of the young men, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scourges. You see what he's doing? He's trying to use scare tactics. He's trying to position himself to where the people respect him, not for his wisdom, not for his wise counsel, but because they're scared of him. Well, this is what his friends had told him to do. Well, folks, something that we need to keep in mind is that Rehoboam's decision, foolish as it was actually God's hand at work. Because this decision is ultimately what facilitated the dividing of this kingdom. Because what ended up taking place after this very out-of-touch political speech has concluded, Israel essentially turns their back on Rehoboam. Yeah, you may be coronated as king, but we're not going to serve you. But we find that only 2 of the 12 tribes would remain with Rehoboam, Judah and Benjamin. Well, Rehoboam, he sends a man by the name of Adoram. And Adoram was a supervisor of his work crews. And he sends this man out to the leaders of Israel, no doubt, to tell them, you know what, you need to get back to work. You're shirking your duties. You're not doing what your king has told you to do. Well, when he shows up, the Israelites stone him to death. They don't want anything to do with Rehoboam. They're not going to honor him. He's not their king. He's not going to tell them what to do. So they stone him to death. Well, when Rehoboam finds out what has happened, he leaves Shechem as fast as he can. He gets in a chariot and he hightails it back to the safety of Jerusalem. Well, the 10 tribes who deserted, in 1 Kings 12, verses 19 through 20, they named Jeroboam as their king. This bringing to fulfillment what God had revealed to Solomon. Well, when Rehoboam got back to Jerusalem, he immediately starts trying to gather a military together. Now, you can imagine the size of this kingdom has just dropped from 12 tribes to 2. And Benjamin was never known as one of the primary tribes. They were a smaller tribe. And even many times for census matters and things of that nature, they were often grouped in with Judah. And so really he only had one main tribe to pull from. Well, in his mind, he was going to get an army together and he was going to go to war with Jeroboam and get his kingdom back. Well, God sent word to Rehoboam through a prophet. We don't know who the prophet was, but he sent word to Rehoboam. In this instance, it was a prophet by the name of Shemaiah. I was thinking about another instance. But Shemaiah, he comes to Rehoboam. In 1 Kings 12, 23 and 24, God tells Shemaiah, he says, "Speak to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, the king of Judah, to all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the rest of the people, saying, Thus says the Lord, you shall not go up, nor fight against your brethren, the children of Israel. Let every man return to his house, for this thing is from me." So God tells the prophet, he said, you go and you tell Rehoboam, you go tell all of those in these 2 tribes that they do not have God's permission to go into this battle. That they're to settle down, they're to go home, they're to continue on with life. Well, to Rehoboam's credit, he listens to what God says. He doesn't go to war with these northern tribes. Well, Rehoboam was 41 years old at the time that he became king. He would reign for 17 years. His mother was a woman by the name of Naamah, and she was an Ammonitess, and she likely played a very important role as what we would today call the queen mother, or the mother of the king. We see this evidenced in 1 Kings 14 and verse 21, where it talks about some of her interactions, some of the things that she was involved in. But the first thing that we note that is really a black eye against this period, folks, the nation of Judah did evil during the time of Rehoboam. They provoked God, the text says, more than all previous generations. Rehoboam was not a good man. He was not faithful to God. But also we find that the practice of idolatry that was started under Solomon continued during the reign of Rehoboam. And the practice of idolatry was even escalated to another level. It got even worse during this time. Okay, so we're going to stop right there. And Lord willing, next Wednesday night we'll pick up right there around 1 Kings 14. But we're going to look at an account from 2 Chronicles 12 and verse 1.